Monday's first video for you is first news story is about rumors that World Bank is going to give around 2 billion US dollars to Ethiopian government by the end of 2022. I have details for you. It seems that rumors are just rumors. Ethiopia is not the only country which will receive assistance from World Bank in coming days. Second news story is about Ethiopia, Sudan tensions. Sudanese army today issued a statement. Sudanese army is accusing Ethiopian army of killing 7 Sudanese soldiers and 1 civilian, not in fighting, but prisoners of war have been executed by Ethiopian military. Serious escalation could follow on Sudan-Ethiopia border. A third news story is about joint statement of the presidents of Oromia and Amhara regions. Yilkal Kefale, Amhara President, and Shimalis Abdisa, Oromia President, have held a meeting. They have issued joint statement. The statement has been issued after Welkait massacre, in which hundreds of innocent civilians have been killed. Most of the killed are ethnic Amharas, and groups, parties in Amhara region are accusing Ethiopian federal government and Oromia regional government that they are involved in this attack, that local officials are backing Oromo Liberation Army. What did the two presidents say? Fourthly, viewers, we have a clip for you showing dozens of buses, empty buses, which have been seen on the move from Oromia towards Amhara. The buses are entering the Amhara region. Why are these buses being sent to Amhara region? Fifthly, police once again used force today in Bahir Dar. Protesters have been beaten by police officials, security officials in Bahir Dar. We have a clip for you. And lastly, very important news story, viewers. The referendum in Wolkait is in the news. Disputed territory between Tigray and Amhara region is once again in the news. Some organizations have written a letter to Ethiopian PM Abiy. The organizations claim that Ethiopian government is considering holding a referendum in Wolkait. We'll have a detailed look at this news story. The organizations claim that PM Abiy discussed this idea in some meetings. Our first news story is about financial assistance for Ethiopia. In several previous videos, I reported about new grants and loans for Ethiopian government by World Bank. Since the announcement of humanitarian truce by the government in March to put an end to hostilities in northern Ethiopia, we see that financial assistance to Ethiopia from World Bank has increased. We have seen 3 grants so far. 300 million US dollar grant, then a 405 million dollar grant, and then a third one. So Ethiopia has received 3 grants and some loans after it announced truce with Tigray fighters a few months ago. Now, we are seeing unconfirmed reports and rumors are being spread that Ethiopia could receive 2 billion US dollars by the end of 2022, and World Bank will provide this grant and loan to Ethiopian government. Is there any truth in these rumors? What we have learned, viewers, is that World Bank is working on a project to mitigate food insecurity in Eastern and Southern Africa. It's a 2.3 billion US dollar project. But it will not involve just Ethiopia. Other East African countries, countries in the southern part of Africa, they'll also be given loans and grants. And so far, 700 million have been distributed out of 2.3 billion US dollars, and Ethiopia received around 600 million US dollars. Madagascar received 158 million US dollars. IGAD also received some funds, and an agricultural research center in South Africa received funds as well. These are loans and grants, around 40% grants and 60% loans. And this is phased support to the countries of East Africa and South Africa. Yes, Ethiopia is the first country to receive 600 million US dollars, but other countries will receive as well. So it's not that by the end of 2022, Ethiopia will receive 2 billion US dollars as grant by World Bank. These are rumors. The project will focus on mitigation of food insecurity in different countries of East Africa and southern parts of Africa. Having said that, yes, Ethiopia could receive more financial assistance by the US, by US-backed institutions, by EU as well, perhaps, though EU is still considering resumption of financial aid to Ethiopia and discussions are underway. EU has not made any decision so far. US is proactively backing Ethiopian government financially, and US is hoping that in coming days there could be key announcements regarding some direct talks between Ethiopian government and Tigray regional government. So no truth in rumors that Ethiopia will receive $2 billion by the end of 2022 from a World Bank. Second news story, very important one, is from Ethiopia-Sudan border. We know that two countries have been involved in border clashes for months after the start of Tigray conflict in November 2020. Sudanese forces took advantage of the preoccupation of Ethiopian forces which were involved in Tigray. Sudanese forces retook Al-Fashaga, long time disputed territory on Sudan-Ethiopia border. More than 95% of Al-Fashaga was retaken by Sudanese forces. Since then, tensions have been rising. Amhara militias, Amhara farmers, they've been trying to retake fertile strip of Al-Fashaga. But Al-Fashaga is still under the control of Sudanese military. Then we saw that Sudan and Egypt threatened Ethiopia last year, advising Ethiopia, warning Ethiopia not to start the second filling of the GERD. But Ethiopia pressed ahead with the second filling of GERD, and now Ethiopia is about to start third filling of GERD. So tensions there. Thirdly, we know that Ethiopia has been accusing Sudan that Sudan is backing Tigray Population Fund, that Tigray fighters are being trained and armed on Sudanese soil, that Tigray fighters backed by Sudanese military are involved in attacks from Sudan side of the border on Ethiopian forces. And lastly, thousands of Ethiopian refugees are in Sudan. Thousands, more than 60,000 from Tigray, Benishangul, Gomez have fled into Sudan. So Sudan is hosting thousands of Ethiopian refugees. And a few days ago, we know that when farming season started, Ethiopian forces tried to establish new bases, new checkposts in Al-Fashaga. Fighting erupted, and during the fighting, Ethiopian government forces captured several Sudanese soldiers and civilians. Sudanese military says that captured Sudanese soldiers have been executed by Ethiopian army. Sudanese military today released a statement, an official statement. Sudanese military says that 7 Sudanese soldiers who were taken prisoner, who were captured by Ethiopian army, have been killed by Ethiopian military, and 1 civilian as well. These soldiers and civilian were killed, and their dead bodies were displayed to local Ethiopians. Sudan's military says that this action will not go unpunished. Sudanese military will ensure appropriate response its violation of international laws. Prisoners of war cannot be executed. Sudanese soldiers were not killed in fighting. They were taken prisoner by Ethiopian military, then killed afterwards. And the allegation is not against a militia. Sudanese military is accusing Ethiopian military that Ethiopian National Defense Force is behind the killing of Sudanese soldiers. So far, no statement from Ethiopian government, but it's a serious situation. If after arrest Sudanese soldiers were killed, it could lead to escalation of tension. Sudan is threatening that it will hit back. In coming days, we could see resumption of hostilities on Sudan-Ethiopia border. Third filling of GERD about to start. Before that, we know that such flare-up of tensions was expected, and with recent border fighting and execution of 7 Sudanese soldiers, it seems that once again Ethiopia and Sudan are heading towards armed confrontation in coming days. Third news story is about joint statement by Yilkal Kefale, Amhara President, and Oromia Region's President Shimalis Abdisa. The two presidents have excellent working relationship despite accusations against each other by some groups in the two regions. Otherwise, Yilkal and Shimalis have had some brilliant working relationship in the past. Both are obviously from Prosperity Party too. What are the two saying? Yilkal and Shimalis say that OLA and TPLF, they are trying to separate the people of Oromia and Amhara. And the purpose of attack on Gimbi was to shatter the unity of Amharas and Oromos. Shimalis Abdisa, Oromia President, said in his talk that those who were killed in Gimbi were first residents of Oromia, then Amharas. So it is the responsibility of Oromia government to protect them, and Oromos, Amharas are brothers living, whether living in Oromia or in Amhara. Shimalis Abdisa further said that OLA was behind the attack on innocent civilians in Gimbi, and the purpose of the attack was to separate the people of Oromia, Amhara, and secondly, to terrorize government officials and to terrorize the people living in Gimbi. Amhara President accused TPLF that TPLF is still in secret alliance with OLA and both are working against the interests of Oromo and Amharas. Now, OLA obviously denies involvement in Gimbi. OLA says it is ready for any impartial, internationally mandated investigation into Gimbi massacre. We have seen statements from Oromo region-based parties as well, like Oromo Federalist Congress, OLF. Opposition parties, they are also demanding inquiry by a neutral body into Gimbi. But Amhara Oromia presidents are accusing just OLA. They say OLA is behind this attack. Fourthly, viewers, we have a clip for you. Dozens of buses were seen heading from Oromia region. The buses were seen entering Amhara region. First, watch this clip, then we'll talk about it.
ወዴት እንደሚሄዱ የታወቀ ነገር የለም። የሚያልቁ ነገር አይነት አይደሉም።
Now, several other videos were also seen showing these buses entering Amhara region. Question is, why are these empty buses being sent to Amhara? Since the buses are empty, it means that people will be loaded in Amhara and taken out of Amhara region, it seems. There could be troops, deployment of troops, you can say movement of troops or movement of civilians, movement of prisoners. That is why these vehicles were sent to Amhara region. What we have learned so far is that perhaps prisoners in Amhara region could be shifted out of Amhara region. We know that more than a month ago, Ethiopian government forces, federal and regional forces of Amhara region launched a campaign against Fano militia members, their supporters, sympathizers, activists, journalists in the Amhara region of Ethiopia. Since then, thousands have been arrested, and some say around 5,000 arrests have been made in the Amhara region since the start of this operation. These prisoners could be relocated. These prisoners could be shifted out of Amhara region. It could happen. We are seeing a campaign that these prisoners are being shifted and a massacre of Amhara prisoners will be committed in Oromia. I personally believe that these prisoners are being shifted for their safety and security. Obviously, in the Amhara region, there could be attacks on prisons which have these prisoners. There could be attacks from extremist elements. There could be attacks by Fano militia as well for the release of these Fano fighters and their sympathizers. That is why perhaps these prisoners are being relocated from the Amhara region to Oromia or to other parts of Ethiopia. That is what we have learned so far. Next news story is again from the Amhara region, Bahir Dar, viewers, where police used force to disperse protesters in Bahir Dar city. I have a clip for you. We have seen similar use of force in Addis Ababa, Ethiopian capital, where Addis Ababa University students tried to protest. They took to the streets outside the university. Police blocked the protesters, used force and forced the protesters to disperse. Several students were arrested. Several were injured as well in the use of force by police. And then we saw protests across Amhara region, student protests. We saw Wollo University student protests, Wuldia University, Debre Birhan, Debre Marcos, Gondar, all university students, teachers, staff held large demonstrations against the Valaga massacre, in which large number of ethnic Amharas has been killed. And today, medical professionals, students, medical students, and some students in Bahir Dar tried to protest. What happened? Immediately after the start of the demonstration, police arrived on the spot. Police beat protesters and police dispersed the protest in Bahir Dar. Again, we are receiving reports that some protesters have been injured too. Amhara opposition parties, which are part of the government, Nama especially, and Skandanagas, Baldiras, they have been speaking against this use of force by police against peaceful protesters. But the peaceful protesters are blocking roads as well. Perhaps that is why police has this excuse, this justification to use force. Police has not stormed any university, any institution so far, but when these protesters come out on the streets, then police uses force. We're not justifying use of force by police, but police use this pretext that since roads are being closed, that is why police is opening the roads. Watch this video from Bahir Dar. I have a long video, but I'm not going to show you graphic content. This is a short clip. The next news story. Lastly, viewers, very important news story. The thorniest issue between Tigray and Amhara region is Western Tigray, Sumera, Wolkait, Sagade. The issue is still unresolved. Both parties have very rigid positions about this zone. Tigray says there is no question of any talks. Western Tigray is part of Tigray. Amhara region president Yilkal Kifale said a few days ago that Wolkait was non-negotiable. It was not up for talks. It's part of Amhara region. Now, some organizations have written a letter to Ethiopian PM Abiy. 23 organizations, which are mainly diaspora organizations. They claim that Ethiopian government of PM Abiy is considering holding a referendum to determine the future status of Wolkait, and they are condemning this likely referendum. They say that they have learned through a source who was part of recent meetings of Prosperity Party that PM Abiy discussed this idea with some other party members that referendum could be held in Wolkait to determine the future status of this zone. Will it be part of Amhara, Oromia, or under the control of federal government? The 20th organization say that they have received this credible information that Ethiopian PM Abiy is going to give away Wolkait through referendum to Tigray People Liberation Fund. Now, Amhara regional government's position is very clear about referendum as well. It's against referendum. It says that Wolkait is part of Amhara, no question of any referendum. Tigray says the same, that no question of any referendum. Tigray's Western Tigray, Humera, Wolkait, Sagade are parts of Tigray, not Amhara. The 20th organization say that this holding of referendum was discussed by Ethiopian PM Abiy with US officials who are leading mediation efforts these days, and it is US backed initiative to give away Wolkait through referendum to Tigray government. Now, we don't know if the government is planning a referendum in Wolkait. How will this referendum be held? Because we know that tens of thousands of Tigrayans, they've been pushed out of Wolkait. So they should be rehabilitated first in Wolkait. If referendum is held, only Wolkait residents will cast votes. And for this purpose, Wolkait residents must be rehabilitated in Wolkait first. Amhara region will raise a question that if Tigrayans are being rehabilitated in Wolkait, what about Amharas? They say that Amharas were expelled from Wolkait by TPLF-led EPRDF alliance. And they would say that Amhara should be rehabilitated as well in Wolkait. So I personally think that holding a referendum in Wolkait is not viable because demographic changes have been done by EPRDF government and by Amhara forces recently. How will you conduct referendum now in Wolkait when thousands of Tigrayans have been pushed out of Western Tigray, and in the past Amharas were pushed out of Wolkait, Sagade, Humera. So this statement could be a way of putting pressure upon Ethiopian PM Abiy's government that the government should not think about holding a referendum in Wolkait.